Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me today. I'm excited to kick off this presentation on enhancing content organization in SharePoint with hierarchical metadata. Today, we'll explore how moving from simple choice columns to a more advanced term store can transform your metadata management. We'll cover best practices for implementing sophisticated tagging systems and show you how to leverage these tools for better content discoverability and organization. So let's get started and see how these techniques can make a real difference in your SharePoint environment. Now, let's discuss the limitations of choice columns in SharePoint. While they are useful for simple tagging, they do have some constraints. Specifically, the current structure is flat, meaning you can't create a hierarchy or nested labels. For example, if you have a tag like finance, you can't break it down further into sublabels like accounts payable or accounts receivable. This makes it difficult to organize and classify content in a more detailed, multi-level way. Essentially, choice columns only allow for a single level of tags, which limits your ability to implement more advanced, hierarchical metadata. To improve content organization and make it more scalable, you'll need to look into more sophisticated tagging solutions that support sublabeling and hierarchy. Let's take a closer look at how the term store enhances content organization in SharePoint. As you know, traditional choice columns are limited to flat structures, which can make it difficult to categorize content effectively. The term store overcomes this limitation by supporting nested sublabels, allowing us to create multi-level hierarchies that improve how we organize and classify information. Setting up the term store is straightforward. It's managed through the SharePoint Admin Center. This setup enables us to build complex, multi-level hierarchies, which significantly boost searchability and make content easier to find. Another key advantage is that the term store functions as a global label database. This means it's accessible organization-wide, helping us maintain consistency in the terminology we use across all teams and departments. Finally, the term store acts as a centralized metadata management tool. Its hierarchical structure allows us to organize metadata more intuitively, leading to better content management overall. This centralized approach aligns perfectly with our goal of making content more structured, discoverable, and easier to manage in SharePoint. Now, let's look at how to navigate to the term store in the SharePoint Admin Center. First, we're preparing to set up metadata, which is a crucial step toward implementing hierarchical tagging. This process helps us organize content more effectively. When you access the interface, you'll see options that allow you to create and manage term groups, term sets, and individual terms. These are the building blocks of your metadata structure. To locate the term store, go into Content Services within the Admin Center. From there, open the Term Store Management tool. Remember, accessing this area is essential because it's where all the magic of structured content organization happens. So, by familiarizing yourself with these steps, you're taking the first important move toward better content classification and retrieval across your SharePoint environment. Let's take a closer look at defining term hierarchies in the term store. This is all about enhancing how we organize content within SharePoint using hierarchical metadata. First, each term can be managed individually, which means you have precise control over how each piece of metadata is classified. This level of control is crucial for ensuring consistency and accuracy across your content. Next, this structure supports unlimited levels of subterms. In other words, you're not limited in how deep your hierarchy can go. This flexibility allows you to organize your terms in a way that truly reflects your business structure or content taxonomy. You can add nested terms as sublabels within term sets. For example, you might have a hierarchy like locations, then North America, then Canada, and finally cities. This nesting helps users easily drill down into specific categories or locations. Finally, in the term store, you create term sets that represent broad categories. These serve as the foundation for your metadata hierarchy, helping to streamline content classification and retrieval. Overall, this hierarchical approach makes content organization more intuitive and scalable, which supports better content management across your organization. Now let's look at how we can further enhance our location hierarchy by adding more detail. For example, under the top-level term Europe, we can add specific countries like France and UK. This helps us organize our content more effectively by grouping locations geographically. Next, within France, we can add cities such as Paris, and under UK, cities like London and Liverpool. This creates a clear, multi-level structure that makes it easier to find and categorize information based on location. The key point here is that by building these hierarchical metadata terms, starting from broad regions like Europe and narrowing down to specific cities, we improve content organization. This approach not only makes navigation more intuitive, but also supports better data management in SharePoint. So remember, adding these levels of detail helps create a logical, easy-to-follow hierarchy that aligns with how users think about locations, ultimately making our content more accessible and organized. Now, let's look at how mapping term sets to managed metadata columns can really improve content organization in SharePoint. Managed metadata columns allow users to select terms from a hierarchical structure, which helps ensure that tagging is consistent across your content. This consistency is key because it aligns with the term store hierarchy, making your metadata more reliable and easier to manage. To set this up, you'll connect a managed metadata column to a specific term set, such as office location. This approach replaces the traditional choice columns, providing a more structured and scalable way to categorize content. The next step is to introduce a managed metadata column into your document library. You'll link this column directly to the relevant term set, ensuring that users can easily select from the predefined terms. Before doing that, you'll need to define your term sets within the term store. These term sets serve as the foundation for your managed metadata columns, enabling a hierarchical and organized tagging system. Overall, this process helps create a more organized, consistent, and easily navigable content environment in SharePoint. Let's talk about how we can improve content organization in SharePoint through tagging with managed metadata. This approach really helps us make our content easier to find and manage across the entire environment. When we assign tags to documents, it streamlines the classification process, making it much simpler to categorize items accurately. You can do this either one document at a time or in bulk, which is especially useful when dealing with large libraries. Using the grid view, for example, allows us to tag multiple files efficiently. A key benefit here is the hierarchical term sets. This means we can select tags from a structured set of terms that reflect different levels of classification. Think of it like choosing categories and subcategories that fit our content perfectly. Overall, this method not only enhances organization, but also improves retrieval, aligning well with our goal of creating a more streamlined, intuitive SharePoint environment. Now, let's take a closer look at how displaying hierarchical labels with breadcrumbs can really enhance content organization in SharePoint. This feature is particularly valuable for large organizations that deal with extensive and detailed metadata hierarchies. Breadcrumbs serve as a visual aid, helping users understand exactly where they are within the classification structure and making it easier to navigate through complex term arrangements. For example, seeing the complete hierarchy, like department, then division, then team, provides much better context and clarity. It helps users quickly grasp the structure without having to hunt through multiple levels. Additionally, you can configure the library to display the full path of terms directly in the metadata column. This flexibility means you can tailor the view to suit your organization's needs, making navigation more intuitive and efficient. Overall, using breadcrumbs in this way improves user understanding and streamlines content management, especially in environments with intricate metadata hierarchies. Understanding the limitations of filtering by hierarchical terms is really important when we're designing our metadata and filtering strategies in SharePoint. One key point to keep in mind is that filtering by broad categories like finance without selecting specific sublabels simply isn't possible. This means if you want to filter all finance-related documents, you need to be aware that you can't just pick finance, at a higher level and see all related files. Instead, users can only filter by the leaf-level terms. Those are the most specific tags or labels assigned to documents. This restricts our ability to do broader grouping or roll-up filtering, which can be a challenge if we're trying to get a high-level overview. Another important point is that SharePoint's filter pane doesn't support filtering documents by parent or grouped terms in a hierarchy. So, when you're using the filter pane, you're limited to selecting specific, individual terms rather than filtering by categories or groups that contain those terms. Being aware of these limitations helps us better plan our metadata taxonomy and filtering approaches to ensure our content remains accessible and easy to find, even within these constraints.